Okay, here is a quick video on proper essay format. By now, as a grade 11 student, you should be familiar with the 5-paragraph essay, and this should be review. If you have challenges or questions or concerns, you please watch the video a couple of times, but also make sure you ask them to me, and I can help you out and work to get you going or back on track where you may be stuck. Okay, so let me just share this and then we will get going with the lesson. Okay, so the essay is something again that you should be uh, very familiar with. Okay, the first paragraph of that essay obviously is that introduction, and this is where you're dealing with the theme prompt, and then you're dealing with really asserting what you're trying to argue and prove. So that theme prompt is, and for all your essays in this particular class, will be theme prompts will be to basically explain how a particular theme is developed within a text, a work. So that you are to come up with a theme, right? You are to develop that, and you'll have to see the previous video for that one. But you are to come up with a theme and then really answer the question of how that theme is being developed. Um, the first sentence of an introduction is that topic sentence, and that is so essential because it's not such a broad general sentence that it doesn't have anything to do with your theme or your idea or your topic. It really is a sentence that zeroes in on the key subject of your essay. So whether that be loyalty or love, it's a sentence about that within the book, a general one. Okay, and remember your theme is a subject plus the author's commentary. So what's the author trying to say about the subject? So as a result, your topic sentence is just a sentence about the subject. Then your theme is something a little bit more. A good introduction demonstrates a number of key things, but primarily it really shows that you have interpreted the novel or the play or whatever you're writing on. You're not simply describing what happens. You're not just simply giving a plot summary. If you're simply giving a plot summary to the novel, then all you're doing is literally describing what happens. Right? And you want to move away from that type of writing to something that shows that you are interpreting what is happening. Okay, and you're interpreting that with respect to that theme. Okay, and that's the important part. So that was the lesson in the previous video. So you really need to get a theme before you really start writing any essay. Okay, so work with your theme. Your theme is absolutely central. Okay. The next piece is the thesis statement. So we're working from a topic sentence to a thesis statement. Then we work to a directional statement. We previously talked about the topic sentence, okay, is a sentence about the subject of what you're writing on, identity, revenge, whatever, technology, pain, love, hate. Okay, those aren't themes, they're subjects. The subject sentence, the subject focuses on the topic sentence here. Your theme is, again, what is the author saying about that subject? Because that's important for this step, your thesis. Your thesis can't be self-evident. It just can't be something that says nothing. It doesn't show any interpretation. It can't. It has to. It has to have that interpretive level to it. That analysis. That's what I mean by having that so what factor. Why does it matter at all? Now, for theme development essays of which you're writing, your thesis is simply this: that the theme of dot 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 is developed by this, this, and this. Okay, so that's actually what you're arguing. So if you can get yourself a proper theme statement, the thesis is no problem. All right. So, and then lastly here, the third part of the introduction is your 1, 2, 3 arguments. Okay, your first argument, second argument, your third argument, and that's your directional statement. Okay, so how does this kind of look together here? So what I have done is put it into this flowchart kind of thing. You start with a topic sentence. Okay, your topic sentence is just a sentence or two on this general subject of your essay. Okay, whatever that general subject that is a part of your theme, that's your topic sentence. Your thesis statement is basically your theme statement. Okay, that theme is evident within Fahrenheit 451. That basically is what you are arguing. And then you're going to say that that theme is developed by imagery, symbolism, and diction, or metaphor, simile, and personification, right? Those become your one, two, threes, right? And that's an important piece as well to understand, right? The next piece here, what I have here is, it looks like a lot of writing, and I'm not asking you to look at this paragraph for style or try to mimic this style, but what I've color coded here is something, is an introduction that I wrote that will show you the pieces and parts of everything. Okay, and this story is on the Bucket Rider, so you may want to just Google the Bucket Rider by Franz Kafka, and you'll be able to come up with a short story, and you'll see very quickly that this short story is quite short, but it's an odd one indeed. What you see in yellow here, okay, in yellow here is the topic sentence. So if I go back here and I have the topic sentence here I need to start with, this essay is about a whole bunch of things. It's primarily about change on some level. Okay, so the topic sentence I have here is, many of Franz Kafka's writings challenge their readers to consider the idea of metamorphosis, or in other words, change. This change in character can manifest itself externally as a physical development, or internally as an emotional transformation. So what I have written here, and again, I'm not asking you to write like this, but what I'm is just get the idea of what the function of a topic sentence is. The function of a topic sentence here is, I have a general sentence or two on the idea of change within this short story, or generally change within his writings. Here is the meat of a intro. In blue is my thesis statement. So let's go through this. This is an important one. In his short story, The Bucket Rider, the idea is developed that one's personal, that is to say, emotional metamorphosis is dependent upon the treatment of others. Okay, that's pretty profound, but however, I can't end just here, because I'd be like, well, so what? So what that is dependent upon the treatment of others? I have to add that so what factor, as I said before. More specifically, because this is the interpretation, the cruelty exhibited to those most vulnerable in society signals the emotional death of one's humanity. This is a key point, okay? Because now I have a full thesis statement, and all I'm doing basically here is stating the theme, okay? And that's why my directional statement starts. This theme is developed through Kafka's use of three contrasting sets of images: light and dark, warmth and coldness, and silence and sound. Something very similar to what we dealt with in class. Notice here that there's a couple of things. My rule of 1 or 3 kicks in. I'm using imagery in 3 different ways. I am not mixing literary devices, okay, which is imagery, and characterization or theme or setting, which are narrative elements. I'm not mixing these things. I could deal with imagery, symbolism, and diction, which would be 3 separate arguments. Okay, that would fit because those are literary techniques, but here I am just focusing on imagery and 3 different types of images. Okay, so that's my rule of 1 or 3. So let's go quickly over this again. General topic sentence that has a sentence or 2 just on the subject of change. Then I move into the blue, which is my thesis statement. My thesis statement, all that is basically stating that this theme, which is both of these sentences, is in this work. Basically, that's what that's doing. The green piece is just, this theme is developed through, and probably every single one of your directional statements will start this way. This theme is developed through blah, 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 blah. And here I've chosen that is developed through imagery, and those 3 different sets of images, okay? So the body paragraphs, after you have your solid introduction, and again, a general rule is if you have a very good introduction, if your introduction's clear, the majority of the time your rest of your essay will be very clear as well. If you have a muddled introduction, then most likely your essay is going to be muddled and confused. If you have an introduction with interpretation, you're probably going to have an essay with a lot of interpretation in there. If you have an introduction that's just describing certain things, then most likely you're going to have an essay that just describes things. So spend that time crafting a good introduction, okay? that has a clear topic sentence, a clear thesis statement, and a clear directional statement. Body paragraphs should follow the P format: the point, the example, the explanation. Your point is your first argument as it relates to your thesis. Your example is of that point that you're trying to make. Then you explain that example with respect to your point. Everything goes back to your thesis. So you give a point, you give an example of the point, then you explain how that example is of your point. Right? It sounds simplistic, and it kind of is, but this is a very key format for you to catch when you are writing a body paragraph. So a point sentence should not only introduce the point to be discussed, but it should situate it back to the thesis, which is that big picture. Okay, if it needs to directly connect back to it. So let's see how this looks as well. Okay, so this is where you're not using plot points. You don't want to use it as a summary. You have to be interpretive, right? So if you're giving me a whole bunch of plot to start off, then you're being descriptive, not interpretive. And we, just as I said earlier, we know we want to be interpretive. So here's a bad point sentence. There are many different images in Kafka's short story, The Bucket Rider. Well, we know that because if I go back here, I've actually listed the different images. So that's self-evident, right? We don't want to be self-evident. We want to be interpretive. We don't want to be descriptive, okay? We have to say something. This is not really saying anything, and it's definitely not going back to your thesis, okay? This is a bad point sentence because it is descriptive, not interpretive, just as I said, and that it doesn't go back to the actual big picture or your thesis statement. Here's a good one. Okay, Kafka's use of contrasting images of warmth and coldness in The Bucket Rider allow for the development of the idea that the transformational, that is to say, emotional depth of one humanity, is immediately connected to the cruelty they exhibit. This is particularly evident in the confrontation between the Bucket Rider and Frau Coal Dealer. Don't get caught up in the style of writing here. Get caught up in the fact that this is taken right from your introduction. So if you have a clear introduction, your point sentence is saying that contrasting sets of images of warmth and coldness go back and show that someone emotionally dies. Okay, well, this is what I did. This theme is developed through Kafka's use of three contrasting sets of images, lightened up warmth and coldness. Warmth and coldness does this. The green here, the warmth and coldness, does the blue. So if you go back here, and you will see that the warmth and coldness, what does it do? It shows the emotional death of one's humanity. That's the connection you have to make. And then this sentence here is just a transition sentence into my example. This is particularly evident with the confrontation between the Bucket Rider and Frau Coal Dealer. Okay, now we got to give the example to the point. Here's the example. The Bucket Rider's voice is burned hollow by the frost, while in contrast, Frau Coal Dealer is shrouded with images of warmth and heat as she sits breathing in peacefully while she knits on her back, pleasantly warmed by the heat. She sees nothing and hears nothing because she is so filled with the warmth that the Bucket Rider so desperately immediately needs. All I have done here is give an example of confrontation. I haven't explained it here. I've just given the quotation. Okay, so this quotation is a linear quotation, which means I haven't blocked it out in the text, and I've given you a handout for the MLA quotations and format and how to cite quotations in prose. So, but you notice here, these are just examples. I need to explain them now. So the literal or physical coldness, that is to say hollowness of the Bucket Rider, is a direct consequence of Frau Coal Dealer's selfish absorption. So here, I've taken the word hollow, that because he's the Bucket Rider, his voice is burned hollow by the frost. Okay, so has a hollowness to them. Is a consequence of her being selfish. The woman rebukes her opportunity to share a humanitarian, which is a humanitarian act, the warmth, and in doing so, she robs the connection to another human being. Her existence becomes meaningless, and her humanity does with the Bucket Rider. So I've connected it back to this. She sees nothing and hears nothing because she is so filled with the warmth that the Bucket Rider so desperately and immediately needs. Okay, so she ignores him. So that comes at her. She has a self-absorption. Her humanity is kind of death with it because she sees nothing and hears nothing of him. So again, this is my interpretation. It's not a description anyway. I'm interpreting it. You may disagree with my interpretation, which is totally fine. But what you can't disagree with, the fact is that I have a point. Okay, I have an example of my point, and I have explained my example with respect to my point. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Good conclusion, very quickly, provides you have to do that 3 times for 3 body paragraphs, obviously. Okay, the P format. A good conclusion wraps things up. Okay, it reminds the reader of your central argument and how you argued it. So basically, a good format here is that you have you flip your introduction. So while you had a thesis statement, sorry, a topic sentence, a thesis statement, and a directional statement, what you do is you give your summary of your directional statement, your summary of your 1, 2, 3 arguments, then you restate your thesis statement, then you end with a general sentence on the subject. So all it basically is a flipping of your introduction in that sense. Okay, it's not simply a repeat of it. Okay, but it doesn't introduce new facts to it, but basically it reminds your reader of what you've actually argued by that type of a format. Just flip your introduction. Okay, hopefully this has helped a bit. Just to help clarify some things, it's given you at least an example. You will find this on hopefully helpful. And then if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know.